I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. All the ways to communicate with us right there at the bottom of your screen. You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or use the hashtag TheStoryKGW on Twitter, or leave us a voicemail. Call our phone number 503-226-5090. We're going to spend some time now talking about how police and schools respond to the unthinkable. It's been on a lot of parents' minds since the shooting of an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, that killed 19 children and 2 teachers. In the months since, we've learned that responding officers waited more than an hour to go into the classroom and confront the gunman. And tonight, our sister station in Austin is reporting on new surveillance footage from inside the school. This footage here, it shows multiple officers with rifles and at least one ballistic shield at 11:52 a.m. That's 58 minutes before they entered the classroom. Investigators are looking at this footage because it indicates officers had more than enough firepower and protection to enter the classroom before they did. With that in mind, we wanted to take a closer look at security in Oregon's largest school districts and ask police what their protocols are for an active shooter situation. Here's Christine Pitawanich.
After kids and teachers were killed in an elementary school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, a parent in our area asked us to reach out to districts and police departments to see what their policies are in regards to school shootings. Simultaneously, another parent texted me, also concerned about school safety.
So my name is Erin Savage, and I have been a PPS teacher for 17 years. I recently left the profession. And I still am a PPS parent. I have 2 daughters in an elementary school here.
Erin Savage left the profession right before the pandemic, she says, in part because of concerns around school security. We spoke to her more than 4 years ago about her efforts to protect students in her second-floor classroom on her own dime.
I purchased a ladder that will go out the window, so if we need a second exit, we can safely evacuate.
She had recurring nightmares about a school shooting, so she also bought a metal device that allows teachers to lock doors from the inside.
The dream stopped after that.
But her concerns have not stopped, especially after the most recent school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Officials at Portland Public Schools say $25.9 million from the 2020 bond have been set aside for school safety improvements.
We're looking at our controlled access to buildings, our cameras, our mass notification system so that we can notify all building occupants in the event there is a critical incident taking place. In some locations, we've added additional fencing. And then with our 2020 approved bond, we'll be installing classroom door locks in all of our classrooms throughout the district.
And we've identified about 2,500 that need some level of hardware improvement. So that could be locks, that could be closers, that could be panic hardware.
We'll also be adding some additional interior and exterior surveillance cameras, and we'll be upgrading all of our intrusion alarms.
Molly Romay with PPS says the district emphasizes training and systems, which includes a regular update to the emergency operations plan, a new app that gives teachers a Cliff's Notes version of the plan, and other drills. They also rely on resources like counselors, social workers, and school psychologists, as well as community partnerships to keep students safe. In Salem-Keizer Public Schools, there's a partnership with law enforcement, and like PPS, both Salem-Keizer and Beaverton schools have bond money going toward continued security improvements like a secured front entry space, fencing, and security cameras. We also asked Portland Police what their protocol would be in a school shooting. Here's Officer Leo Harris.
I am completely confident that all the officers in this area would respond immediately and do something very appropriately to take action, stop the threat immediately, and then start helping to get people critical aid. They would go inside, try to find the shooter, and try to stop them as soon as possible.
Back at PPS, remember those door locks the district is working to install? That'll be complete by the end of next school year, but Savage thinks that's too long of a wait.
This is the time to retrofit every single door in this whole entire district, not wait until the end of next school year. Let's do it now while class is not in session.
Last week, Portland Public Schools upheld its decision to ban weapons on campuses and also further restricted people with a concealed carry license from carrying a gun on PPS property. Savage believes that's a step in the right direction, but it underscores the need for the district to act quickly on security measures, like doors that lock efficiently and reliably. Christine Pitawanich, KGW News.
Thanks, Christine. Well, look outside. The sun is shining. You can see Mount Hood from downtown Portland, and this is part of the climbing season there. As incredible as the mountain is, though, it quickly can turn deadly, and 36 years ago it did. In May of 1986, 7 students and 2 staff members from the Oregon Episcopal School died on Mount Hood. It was one of the worst climbing disasters in U.S. history. And now a local author is remembering the tragedy in a new podcast. Chris McGinnis takes us into the KGW Vault.
In the pre-dawn hours of Monday, May 12, 1986, a group of 15 high school students and 5 adults left Timberline Lodge, plotting the most climbed route on one of the most climbed mountains in the world. You're seeing some of the last known photos of the climbers. A few hours later, mid-climb, the party was enveloped in a late spring blizzard on Oregon's highest peak.
We've got reports of 60-mile-an-hour winds, visibility of maybe 20 feet. It's a whiteout.
This is KGW footage from that day. 7 turned around early. The 13 who continued did so through worsening weather. Realizing they couldn't make it down safely, they dug in for the night. They had no idea where they were. Battling blinding snow and freezing wind, 2 of the party would make a desperate escape to get help at first light Tuesday morning.
Well, we were trying to find our way back down. We had some problems with hypothermia with kids and got lost on our way down trying to use a compass, and we couldn't see.
Molly Shula and hired guide Ralph Summers escaped and found themselves all the way over at Mount Hood Meadows. They were brought up to Timberline to help rescuers locate the 11 other climbers, sheltering in an undersized, hastily dug snow cave. I got a chance to interview Barry Wright, one of the senior members of Portland Mountain Rescue. Barry recalls that day.
Very vague descriptions from Ralph Summers on he had no idea where he came from, how he got to where he came off the mountain at. When our rescuers had to be up on their hands and knees to keep from being blown around on the mountain, it kind of said something about how bad the weather was. We sent our teams into the high priority areas. We sent teams to the left. We sent teams to the right. We sent teams up on the mountain, up higher up on the mountain to check higher up.
The storm finally broke the next day. The conditions surreal. 11 climbers lost in the fresh, deep snow as the sun shone brilliantly Wednesday morning. Search teams located 3 of the missing climbers high up on the White River Glacier. There was miscommunication between rescue crews as to whether these climbers were alive. Hope turned to despair. 3 teens had spent the night underdressed on top of the snow.
These people here are 2 of the subjects that earlier were described as fatalities. They're being rushed in their state,
which is
frozen at this point, to the hospital for a doctor who is awaiting them and to give them emergency care.
Classmates, the climbing community, the whole city of Portland held vigil as helicopters lifted the first 3 climbers to Portland's Emmanuel Hospital on Wednesday, where long-shot life-saving measures were used. Back on the mountain, there was still no sign of the other 8 climbers, and searchers moved on to other locations. The sun was blinding, the weather was spectacular, and teams of rescuers crisscrossed the search area, deep probing for hours.
with this team going up, they're going to continue the search, and then we're going to go in, take a break, and go back up until the light fails.
Dawn broke on Thursday. Choppers in the air, search dogs, and rescuers on the snow resumed their work all day. The exhaustion of the rescuers was visible.
I was up almost straight through 36 hours, 48 hours, 3 days almost. without any sleep, and it definitely took its toll.
Then at approximately 5:15 p.m., after a long day of probing the deep snow with 10-foot poles, searchers found something. The equipment cache. The climbers left it outside their cave. About 20 minutes later, digging up 4 feet of fresh snow, the entrance to the snow cave was located. 8,200 feet on the White River Glacier, mere feet from where one of the first climbers was located 36 hours earlier.
Second patient's rate is 30. Copy. Copy.
How was it? He's shaky, but he was conscious. He was looking at us. He knew we had him.
One by one, the patients were brought down from the cave, then rushed to one of 5 awaiting Portland hospitals. The chances were slim. Core temperatures were unbelievably low. Ultimately, 7 teenagers and 2 adults died.
I get pretty emotional if I got into some of the details, but I really think, actually I had the opportunity to help move one of the kids from the rescue helicopters to the medical helicopters.
What sticks with you the most 36 years later?
Probably the effect that it had on the way I thought about it. I mean, I tried to avoid thinking about it because it brought back such intense memories of what was going on.
Barry Wright slowly retreated from his role at Portland Mountain Rescue. Oregon author Rick Conrad reached out to him in 2014.
What was the motivation for the book?
I was a recreational climber in the 90s, and everybody remembers this tragedy. And I kept waiting for someone to write the book. And the years turned into decades, and I'm like, these search and rescue workers are aging. This needs to be told. And I finally just took up the baton myself.
That book, Code 1244, the 1986 Mount Hood tragedy, was released late in 2019. It has been turned into a 5-episode podcast, Against the Odds, Trapped on Mount Hood.
Visibility has dropped to less than 50 feet. They're in a near total whiteout.
The final episode was released on Tuesday, June 14th.
I know it's an important story, but I also want people to remember the volunteer efforts that went into this search and rescue operation. The sheriff's report says there was about 114 people involved. My research has shown there's at least 167. And I just want to give a public thank you to the rescue community for responding to this tragedy.
Some neighbors in Southeast Portland say a homeless camp has gotten so dangerous with fires and shootings that they're prepared to move away.
As a female single woman living on the bottom floor, it's completely unnerving.
Plus, Oregon and Washington are recognizing Juneteenth as a paid state holiday for the first time. So let's explore the meaning behind the celebration.
When we look at American history, when we look at oppression that we've had to grapple with and overcome, we have had to hold on to a sense of hope.
When the story continues. Welcome back. Keep sending your questions and comments to thestory@kgw.com or give us a call and leave a voicemail at 503-226-5090. We talk a lot about people who are homeless on this show and also about the camps that some create in neighborhoods. It's one of the top issues that angers and frustrates both renters and homeowners. Tonight, Blair Best introduces us to two people who live in Southeast Portland, Southeast 33rd and Powell to be exact. They are so frustrated over problems at a nearby camp that both are moving out, and they are saying it's time to go.
We live in a war zone basically, and like there's nothing I can do.
City crews clean up debris from a fire that broke out at the Southeast Portland tent site last week.
Houseless tent fires have happened more in the recent history.
So far this month, Portland Fire and Rescue has responded to 74 fires, 20 of them at homeless tent sites like this.
Anytime a fire can extend is dangerous to all the neighborhoods.
But this fire is just the latest in a recent string of unsettling events involving this camp.
Except for the murder in this is probably takes second place for the crazy stuff that's been going on.
Sarah Coles has lived across the street from the site for the past 2 years.
As a female single woman living on the bottom floor, it's completely unnerving.
She keeps her doors and windows locked at all times and doesn't leave her home at night. It all started when she first moved in and a shooting killed one of the campers.
So what happened is there were 5 different shots, and one skimmed over a neighbor's car.
Another went right through her living room.
You can see how it just kind of blew through there.
This bullet hole, a reminder of the dangers right outside her front door.
It's the worst feeling. The worst feeling.
Elias Giangos has lived here for 7 years. He's been assaulted multiple times. These scars from being stabbed by someone living at the camp.
We called the police. There's no response.
He and his wife are moving out at the end of the month.
We're getting out of here.
It's gotten to the point where my family's like, we want you out of there, we'll help you, let's get out.
Residents at Powell Gardens Apartments tell KGW the building management has tried calling the city about the camp numerous times. We reached out to the management team but did not hear back.
I don't know that there's going to be an end to it. I just don't think there will be.
Blair joins me now. Hard story to watch, really. I can't imagine being at my wits' ends like those folks are from a homeless camp. What is going on? Why won't the city do something?
So it's a good question. I mean, they've reached out to the city numerous times. Like I had mentioned, the management team has reached out to the city as well. And what's interesting is the city prioritizes camps' health and safety, if they have hazardous material, if there's been criminal activity. Location is a big one. If it's near a school, blocking ADA access, anything like that, that puts a camp at a higher priority in order to be removed. But with this camp, what's interesting is it's near a school. There's been numerous counts of criminal activity, yet it has not been removed in more than 2 years of being there.
I'm just laughing because as you were saying that, I'm like, check, check, check. All these boxes are checked.
Yeah.
And it's still there. And it's so annoying that the neighbors are saying, we're done, we're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I mean, and it must have financial impact on that management company as well of the apartment building because they're losing. I mean, those aren't the only residents leaving either.
Yeah. Well, and anytime we do stories about outer Southeast, I always get emails from people saying I've lived here for 30, 40 years and now I'm leaving because of all the crime.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're also seeing it in closer in Southeast. And also, we just wanted to touch briefly on the fire issue. I know that it's a problem in the homeless camps year round, really. People are trying to stay warm. I understand that. But as it gets closer to summer, it's more dangerous because everything's going to start drying out, right?
Yes, 100%. And the firefighters I talked with, you know, they say they try to inform these campers of, you know, not burning anything inside their tent, staying 25 feet away from a structure or other materials that the fire could spread to. But I mean, education only goes so far.
Right. And well, and those rules are great in the abstract.
Yes.
But in a crowded camp or tent, that's hard. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Blair. Very interesting report. Appreciate that. Still ahead, a trip to Galveston, Texas to learn about the history behind Juneteenth.
This holiday represented to the former enslaved and their descendants really our 4th of July.
When the story continues. Yesterday was Juneteenth, commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. A lot of you probably had today off. Congratulations. For the first time ever, Juneteenth is being recognized as a paid state holiday in both Oregon and Washington. But the celebration actually goes back more than 150 years. Here's Shante Sumter from our Seattle station.
A song of comfort and hope, performed by a group that came about during a period of pain and despair.
The brutal murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and so many other Black lives really moved our museum to do something.
Lanisha DeBartoleben is the president and CEO of the Northwest African American Museum. After a summer of protest for racial justice in 2020 and the ongoing pandemic, the museum created a choir to spread a message of hope, resilience, and healing. It's the African American Cultural Ensemble, or ACE.
Because people were disparaged, people were depressed, and people were distraught over these shootings. Well, what better way to try and encourage people and give them hope and maybe a little bit of peace? Child, things are gonna get easier.
Under the direction of Jason Turner,
Child, things will get brighter.
ACE learned and practiced songs from the civil rights movement and debuted in 2021 on Juneteenth.
Our messages of freedom, equity, equality for all people, all genders, all races.
Music of our ancestors, Negro spirituals, and music of consciousness that poses the notion, ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Things are gonna get better.
For many Black Americans, they're still waiting for that message of hope to become a reality. Racism is still painfully prevalent in our society. Just last month, a man allegedly motivated by racism and hate shot and killed 10 people in Buffalo, New York.
How do you all navigate singing things are going to get easier when sometimes on the surface of what we see, it doesn't always appear that way?
That is the story of America. When we look at American history, when we look at oppression that we've had to grapple with and overcome, we have had to hold on to a sense of hope.
While many are just now learning about Juneteenth, in Galveston, Texas, the birthplace of the holiday, they've been commemorating it for 157 years. King 5 Facing Race traveled to Texas to explore those roots.
So here we have a set of books, what we call our weapons of mass destruction.
We caught up with Samuel Collins, known in Galveston as Professor Juneteenth. He gives tours at this cultural center dedicated to the day. Collins educates visitors on the origins of Juneteenth, the day the last enslaved people learned they were free here in Galveston on June 19, 1865. A message the Union soldiers finally brought to these shores 2.5 years after President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation.
As the Union soldiers moved throughout the South, they spread freedom from place to place. So these states would have received the message at different times.
Today, the holiday is all about celebrating Black culture, history, and life. Collins says Juneteenth is celebrated through events like festivals, barbecues, and church services.
This holiday represented to the former enslaved and their descendants really our 4th of July, but it's not our in the sense that it's only African Americans. It's all Americans that value freedom and liberty should celebrate Juneteenth. So that's one of the things that I'm working to get more individuals to embrace, not that Juneteenth is connected to enslavement, but that Juneteenth is connected to freedom.
As the fight for equality continues, ACE's message remains strong. With each performance, they hope to continue to be a vessel for strength and resilience.
This avenue of inspiration, this avenue of lifting our eyes higher than the circumstances that are around us, to really peer into what is possible, not so much what's present, but what is possible.
For this week's Hey Help campaign, we're asking you to donate to Native American Youth and Family Center. They're a nonprofit serving the Native American community in the Portland metro area. They offer programs for families like camps, college and career fairs, early childhood programs, and foster care services. If you want to help out, just hold your phone's camera up to the QR code on your screen right now, or you can go to kgw.com/heyhelp. Well, that's the end of our program. Thanks so much for watching. But remember, the story, our story, well, that never ends. I'll see you tomorrow.
This is KGW News at 6:30.
We begin at 6:30 with breaking news of yet another homicide in Portland. Police are on the scene now at Northeast 81st Avenue and Klickitat Street, where a man was found dead. The investigation has been going on now for several hours, but officers just confirmed the homicide 30 minutes ago. We don't know yet how the man was killed, and there's no information yet on a suspect. We will keep you updated as we learn more. Thank you for joining us here at 6:30. Portland police are also investigating a shooting in Old Town that sent an underage person to the hospital. But the shooting also created panic for some celebrating Pride this weekend. Galen Etlin has a look at the scary situation.
A nightclub went into lockdown near that Old Town shooting, and you can imagine the fear for people inside, thinking of the Pulse massacre 6 years ago. It was a busy Saturday night during Portland's Pride weekend. CC Slaughter's nightclub packed with people celebrating togetherness. But then
people started running through to the middle of the dance floor, and then everyone started getting down on the ground.
Eric Gregory was at CC's visiting from Seattle.
Everybody please stay down.
And took this video.
You're okay, we are okay.
As staff worked to keep the crowd calm and safe. Because just outside the door, bullets were flying.
I think it went through everyone's mind that this is like Pulse nightclub.
In June of 2016, during Pride celebrations in Orlando, a gunman targeted LGBTQ+ people, killing 49 and hurting more than 50 others. For many, that massacre and memory are carried with them during Pride.
It's okay.
So at Cece's, people anxiously watched the front door.
Scared to death and comforting each other.
Sort of that collective trauma that we in the LGBTQ community have in a situation like that, and seeing something play out like that.
Everyone was trying to comfort each other like there was immediate danger. We felt like a community. It felt like a community on the floor.
Slowly, no shoving. Everybody be calm.
Several agonizing minutes later, everyone safely evacuated. It appears the shooting did not target Cece's. Police said someone shot into a car around Northwest Davis, hitting a juvenile passenger. That person went to the hospital and is expected to be okay.
They put down 29 tags were bullet casings.
The people in the car said they did not know who shot at them or why, and police did not make an arrest.
We got through it.
And for Eric Gregory, a visitor celebrating LGBTQ identity and resilience, the shooting meant something more.
What is your takeaway from that?
But I still got up and went to Pride because I wanted to be there for my community like it was there for me last night.
Togetherness in the face of fear. Again, police are looking for who did this, and it does appear shots were fired away from that nightclub. Anyone with information should give police a call. Galen Etlin, KGW News.
The family of an Idaho man killed in a hit-and-run crash in Vancouver hopes the public can help track down the driver involved. Jerry Bolland was a 42-year-old father of 7. He was changing a flat tire in the Salmon Creek area when someone hit him. We spoke with Jerry's wife just yesterday.
He was just a lovable human being, and incredibly kind to a fault. It's not about revenge. It's about resolution and peace for everybody involved.
That was Jerry's sister speaking. The crash happened on I-205 northbound in Salmon Creek. If you witnessed the crash, police want to hear from you. They're also asking anyone who has a dash cam and was traveling in the area on the morning of June 2nd to review the footage for the fleeing car. 6 people got quite a shock this morning as a gangway failed, dumping them into the cold waters of the Willamette. This was on private property near Northwest Marina Way. It is unclear what exactly happened after the gangway failed, but we're told 2 people needed to be pulled from the water. It appears no one was injured in the incident. We still don't know what caused the collapse. More people will be heading down to the rivers as the temperatures really warm up this week. But rescuers really want to stress the water is colder than usual right now. That could lead to trouble if you're not prepared. Mike Benner has the warning.
We are at Poets Beach in the South Waterfront, and one thing first responders say we need to be on the lookout for is quite clear right here. We're talking about high river levels. You'll notice the beach is basically non-existent because the water's so high. The same can be said along the Columbia River. Not a lot of sandy beach along Marine Drive. Water's simply higher than normal there too. That can pose a danger. So too can the speed of the current. We're told rivers are running faster right now. Another thing to keep in mind, water temperatures. They're nowhere near the air temperature, which may be around 90 degrees later in the week. Here's Lieutenant Rich Tyler with Portland Fire and Rescue.
Just because it feels hot because we're in that low 90s doesn't mean the water's now warmer. It's still running in the mid 50s, maybe high 50s. That differentiation of temperature can have an impact on your body, especially if you have any underlying medical conditions.
Lieutenant Tyler says life jackets should really be a no-brainer. If you're in or near the river, wear one, regardless of your swimming ability. This, of course, is advice for kids and adults alike, but Lieutenant Tyler says don't forget about your furry friends. Water running higher and faster than normal can prove to be a challenge for dogs, so be sure to keep an eye on them as well. Reporting in the South Waterfront, I'm Mike Benner for KGW News.
Oregon and Washington will start distributing COVID shots for kids this week. The FDA and CDC both approved smaller doses for kids ages 6 months to 5 years old. The Western State Scientific Safety Review Work Group found the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are safe and effective for that age group. The group confirmed this yesterday to both governors of Oregon and Washington. A Portland man is back home after spending more than 2 months in Poland helping send medical supplies to Ukraine. Since the start of the war, his organization, AmeriCares, has sent over 130 tons of supplies to the war-torn country. As Joe Ranieri reports, those shipments aren't expected to stop anytime soon.
You did see a lot of military presence, Polish, NATO.
Adam Keene has been playing a pivotal role in making sure medical supplies is still getting into Ukraine.
The pace hasn't slowed. I mean, the pace of refugee movements has slowed, but the pace of shipments into the country really is continuing quite fast because the needs are so great.
He's the director of Complex Emergencies for AmeriCares, a nonprofit that provides emergency response teams to help people recover from disasters from all over the world. Keene was responsible for making sure 130 tons of medical supplies was delivered to Ukraine.
We established contacts inside Ukraine with health facilities, hospitals, government contacts through the Ministry of Health.
Him and his team made sure hospitals and medical facilities had everything from bandages, needles, OB kits for pregnant women, and over-the-counter medicine.